Welcome back to Vintage Speedworks. My name is Marco. Today we're back working on our Honda CB200T and we need to get this bike up and running and down the road. But before we do that, we need to make sure that we put all the electrical components back in their place so we can make sure that all the electrical components like the turn signals, the headlights are all working properly. So follow along and I'll show you how we're going to do that. All right, so the first component that we're going to work on is this ignition switch right here. Now this switch works properly. However, as you can see, at some point the owner that had this bike before spliced into the wires. Now the wires are the same color. I guess he just cut the switch off to troubleshoot or something like that. But we need to get this back up and soldered, maybe put some heat shrink on it so we can make sure it's watertight and it's connected properly. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on my little bench. I'm gonna cut the ends, put some heat shrink on it, and I'm gonna show you how I'm going to go about repairing this so we can put it back with its original bracket. Now this bracket is the one that goes in this frame right here. It has some rubber grommets here and it goes on the frame with 2 bolts, and then this switch kind of goes in here. You get the idea. It goes in here and then it goes down here so you can kind of turn it on from there. So let me go ahead and remove this and I'll bring you closer to the bench. So I'll show you how we're going to go about repairing these wires. All right, so I have this little stool here where I'm going to do my connections, and it's very simple really. This switch or this ignition switch is original. It still works, but like I mentioned before, for whatever reason the owner cut into these wires. Now we need to go ahead and splice those and make sure they are where they're supposed to go. Now if you look at the colors are actually the same ones coming out of the switch itself. So red goes with red, brown with white goes with brown with white, black with black. So there's really no mistakes we can make here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start taking off the tape from these connections. You know, generally I wouldn't use tape to do this. I remember back in the day when I was younger, I would use electrical tape for everything because that's really all I knew, until heat shrink kind of started showing up, and then I started using heat shrink, and that's what I used to this day. So as you can see, the connections are kind of short from here, so I want to be careful not to over splice them, and if I don't need to over splice them, then that's fine. I won't. I think we should be okay. The connections seem pretty good. So I'm just gonna twist these to try to get them to have a good twist like that, okay? So now I'm gonna go ahead and take these. I'm just gonna check to see if they don't have any damage or anything like that, which they don't, and I'm just going to go ahead and crimp the ends. As a matter of fact, those are pretty much the same length, so I'm going to try to crimp these about the same length, just about. All right, we can get rid of those. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to use my crimpers here. These crimpers I really like. They're from Harbor Freight, just regular crimpers. All you have to do is just kind of gauge where you want the cut to be. In my case, it's that, and it's as simple as that. You just undo that, and you get the next one, same thing, and then the next one. Sometimes it takes 2 tries to get it to work properly, especially on the softer wire. But there you go. So now we splice these, we just give them a quick twist. Like that. There we go. So now those are spliced. So before we start doing anything with soldering or anything like that, we got to go ahead and put in our heat shrink. I'm just going to measure the right heat shrink size. I feel like this one might be a little, well, yeah, I think this one will work. We'll try it out. Yeah, I think this size might work. It's a little snug, so we're gonna have to get our connections pretty close. can see, but I think that should work. So we'll try it on one. You don't want to put all of them in, because if you put all of them in, what could happen is as you're heating up one of the heat shrink tubes with your lighter or whatever you're going to use for that, you could heat up the other ones, causing them to kind of contract, and so you don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just get the brown with brown. Make sure it's not the brown with white. So get the brown with brown and just give it a very tight twist. Now the reason you want it to be tight is because you want that heat shrink to go over it. There we go. Perfect. I think that looks about right. And now we can come in with our solder. I just purchased this solder because I ran out of my other one, and I don't know how it's going to work, so we'll find out here together. But I have my soldering iron here in this little paint can that I have glued to my little bench here, and it works because you can just drop it in there and forget about it without having to burn yourself if you put it on the table. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put a little bit of solder on the tip, and then we're going to just wait to transfer the heat over to the copper wire. What you want to see is that the solder flows directly into the wire from the heat. Just kind of guide it. And once you see that the solder kind of flows in between the wires, then you should be okay. You don't want to put too much. You see, like I had a big old blob on the other side I didn't see, but there you go. It doesn't take too much. Once you separate it, you want to make sure that you don't have any jagged edges of solder kind of poking out, because that could make holes in your heat shrink and you don't want that. So there we go. That's really all it takes. Nice and strong connection. I'm going to blow onto it just to make sure that it kind of cools. It doesn't take that much to cool, and get it warm or cold to the touch. There, and then all we have to do is just put our heat shrink over it. Now there is a little bit of wire that's stuck out here. I'm just going to go ahead and trim that off. There we go, that's trimmed off. Now we're going to put our heat shrink over it, that connection, and we're going to apply some heat. Now you can use a heat gun. A lot of people would suggest that you use a heat gun. In my case, I use just a regular lighter. I think that works fine too. Okay, that's fine. There we go. So that's one connection. I'm gonna go ahead and keep doing the same thing for the other ones. So the next one, I believe, if we're going to kind of keep it in sequence here, would be the black connection. So I'm gonna go ahead and not forget my heat shrink. Put it in there and make sure you slide it all the way to the end here. You don't want it anywhere near your heat. So make sure that they're nice and twisted on there, kind of tight. These are old cables. I forgot to mention, they're not new cables. Obviously this is a switch probably that's original from the bike. So the wires are not all that great, and sometimes the solder, has a hard time flowing into the wire because there's dirt and there's, old grime and what have you. So you want to make sure that you kind of heat up the wire as best as possible. Now, what I like to do is I like to put solder in between the tip and the cable, just as a way to initially start trying to transfer the heat onto the copper wire. Sometimes, there could be impurities in the cable, like here, and it can be hard for the solder to flow in, especially on thicker wire. Now this is a thicker wire here, which is I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is a black cable, but in the Hondas, this would be your power source, or there would be actual power running through these 4 components. So this cable is actually thicker, so that's why getting the heat into this copper cable can be a lot trickier. It's not hot enough. We're gonna have to kind of wait for it to heat up. I had been using the lead-free solder recently, and it was giving me good results. I didn't mind it, but I heard that if it has a little bit of tin on it, that it works, or a little bit of lead on it, it works better. In this case, as you can see, it's not wanting to flow into the cable, I guess because of the impurities that it has in there. So what I'm going to do here is simply take a little bit of flux. Just gonna take a little bit of flux and just add it to the wire. And this should help it flow a little bit better, because we're having problems transferring the heat. Hopefully that'll help it. So let's go ahead and give that a try. Not really wanting to heat up this thicker wire. My soldering gun might be a little bit too weak, so I might have to get my bigger gun to try to get this to heat up a lot better. Yeah, it's just not, it has some solder in between the wires, it's just not getting enough of that solder in there. Nope. All right, so let's bring out the bigger guns. All right, so honestly, I wasn't too happy with that connection. I mean, it did flow in, and it has a little bit of wires kind of sticking out here. I'm just going to trim those. However, this is a thicker gauge wire because it's the main power cable, which is the black cable on the Hondas. So it's not necessarily, it wasn't necessarily easy to solder. The thicker the cable, the more power that you need from your guns to be able to solder it. But what I have been noticing is that these wires, since they're older, they have a lot of corrosion on them, or they're kind of like if they went through, or heat cycled, I guess you can say. So you have to be careful when you're trying to solder those old wires. But in this case, we got a good connection, super strong. It just took a little longer to kind of get there, but that connection is good. Now that it's cold, we just have to kind of slide our heat shrink over it. And again, now we get our lighter. Just quickly go over it. And there we go. All right, so now we're going to continue to the next two wires, and we're going to repeat the process. All right, so we have our switch here ready to go. We wired it. I put a little bit of electrical tape just to kind of conceal all those, the heat shrink. I wouldn't obviously recommend to just put electrical tape. You want to heat shrink them first and then add a layer of electrical tape just to kind of keep everything kind of close together. and working in that way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and set the switch in this little bracket. All it is just setting it into this little bracket. Now there is a notch here at the bottom, and there is a small notch here on the bracket. So you want to put it in the correct orientation, which is there, so that way it doesn't spin. And then we're simply going to add our lock. Okay, we're just gonna snug it up for now. Okay, just like that. And now we're going to get our bolts. Now you gotta look at what bolts you're going to use, because there is this wiring loom that goes through here. And then there is this little bolt, or this little bracket, I guess you can call it, that goes in this place. So it goes in like that, so it kind of holds the wiring loom in its place. Obviously, you need to push it in so it can kind of go where it's supposed to go, but that's where it's supposed to go. So we're just going to add our washer and nut on the other side. Now, I do want you to note that there is another bracket that goes on the other side. I'll show you here shortly. And that bracket holds, I believe it's the RPM cable. It's this one right here. It goes on the other side. There's a bolt that runs through there. And I think this one is what holds the cable that goes to the RPM gauge on the other side of the bike. And I think that's where that needs to go. So on this side, we're just going to put in the bolt where it needs to go here. And on the other side, I'm going to install the bracket so that that RPM cable can kind of latch on there. Okay, we have it in its place. Now I'm gonna grab a 10mm wrench. And my 10mm ratchet. Okay, all right. All right, so we have our key or ignition switch installed, and now we just need to connect these cables. There is a way to connect them, obviously. There's a little latch here. Now, as you can tell, these are broken, or there's a little bit, you know, it's kind of broken there. However, you know, these are old bikes, so that tends to happen. Now, I'm gonna see if I can route this through the inside instead. Maybe that's a better idea, to get it out of the way, maybe not touching the motor. So maybe if we run it through here, it'll look cleaner and it'll be out of the way. I know it's a little tight to get in there, but it might be worth it. There we go. Now, I realized that I forgot to order a small horn. This bike didn't come with a horn, and those wires are right here. And I'm sure that that horn goes somewhere in this area around here, if not somewhere in the front. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to wire that horn here, but we can do that at the very end. So these right here, these two wires go to the coil. So the coil is actually on the other side. The black and white. The horn actually, this cable, the horn, I believe it's just grounded, and then this is the positive going to the horn. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little piece of tape here, run the wires to the other side, and those are gonna go on our ignition coil. Okay, gonna wire it like that for now, but I think that looks pretty good. That's pretty snug. That looks good. Okay, so let's move on to the next step. Before I do that, I do want to tighten this up. There's a couple of ways you can tighten this up to be able to tighten it up as much as possible. Now, I'm sure they sell a specific tool to be able to turn this to kind of get it a little bit tighter, but I don't have that tool, so I simply just put a rag on top, a pair of channel locks, and just try to tighten it up. You don't need to go too crazy, you know, just kind of get it snug. And there we go. So we got this installed. Now it's time to move to our headlight. All right, so our headlight has a whole bunch of wires, as you can see in here, and it probably is going to be okay because I went through them. I made sure everything was okay, but before we do that, let's just give it one more try and make sure that everything is working on the bike as far as the, you know, the functions of it. I do think I do have a problem with the starter itself or the solenoid, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and figure that out later. But for now, I wanna make sure that all the components up here are working before I put this bucket back on the front headlight, right? Because all these wires go to the left turn signal, the right turn signal, the handlebars, to the back. And so I wanna make sure that all of them are working properly. So let me go ahead and connect the battery to it and see if everything is working the way it should. I'm gonna go ahead and put my key in here. Now this is the original key and it works on the bike, but it doesn't work as well as I would want it to work. It's a little, you kind of have to mess with it a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna connect my power. Okay, so we have power there. Okay, so first thing I want to do is turn on my switch, make sure that that's working properly. So here we go. Okay, so we have headlight, so that's a good sign. So whenever you turn on your bike on these older Hondas, you can either have it in this position or in the second position, and it doesn't have the light on, so that's working good. If you have it in this position, then you should be able to, here we have three, yeah, so we have, hopefully y'all can see that, but we have 3 lights. These are the ones for the gauges, so those should be working. So we're gonna go ahead and try the left turn signal. That one's working. The rear is working as well, so that's good. Then we have our right turn signal, and then we also have our indicator for the turn signal that's working. The back one is working as well. I don't have the tail light. We still have to take care of the tail light, but that's a good sign. And then we have our low beams and high beams working. Perfect. So that's working good. I think we're all set to put this back on the bike. So let's go ahead and turn off the switch and let's start putting all that stuff back. Now, I love classic Hondas and I love how they work and everything, but this is one of the things that just drives me nuts. This bird's nest, as they like to call it, is just, you know, it shouldn't look like that. And that's the way they kind of came from the factory. So, I mean, that's just the way they are. But, you know, the design of that is not the greatest, but most bikes have them from this era. And so we just kind of have to work around it. But my thing is, if it heats up for whatever reason, since the light is on for too long or whatever the case may be, it could cause issues, you know, maybe cable getting burnt or something like that, and that's where you can run into problems. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm going to go ahead and put the headlight back on. And then we have 2 bolts that go here on the side. We just have to line those up. Now, I should note, this isn't a proper restoration. A restoration, you obviously want to, you know, have new parts that you're going to put on your motorcycle, and you're going to, you know, want to basically get everything the way that it was supposed to be, you know, like period correct, the way everything is supposed to be. In this case, you know, this isn't that. This is more of a, you know, get it running, give it a new life, make sure somebody can benefit from this bike and use it, and then they can maybe one day restore it or keep it with them and kind of upkeep it, and maybe put a new headlight bucket one day that is specific to this year bike, or customize it, whatever they want to do to it, really. But you know, it keeps the bike alive, you know, it keeps the bike going for more years instead of just going to waste and maybe nobody ever touches it because, you know, it's just not running. So the next thing I think we're going to do, now that we're here, I think we should just install the gauges and see if those work properly. And yeah, and then we can move our way back to the tail light and get that installed as well. Okay, so we're getting ready to install our gauges now. And I kind of don't, to be honest with you, I kind of don't recall how they go installed that well. So I'm just gonna kind of wing it. If you see that I do something wrong, please put it in the comments below so I can know to come back and revisit it. But from my understanding, there is a nut that goes in here, right there, and that kind of keeps it from moving or from turning as we tighten these up. So that is where our bracket kind of sits. So I'm gonna go ahead and install one side first. Now this bracket goes like this, it goes down like that. So I have to put this first, and I know that this gauge goes on, if you're looking at it from your angle, it would go on the left. So I have to make sure that this bracket goes right here, just like that, and then the nut goes in here. And we gotta make sure that that doesn't fall, and we gotta make sure that the bolt behind here and the orientation of this bracket, hopefully y'all can see that there's a little groove here in the back that it falls into place where it's supposed to go. And in this case, it has fallen into place. So I'm just gonna go ahead and snug that bolt up. It is a 12 millimeter. Okay, we snug that up, and now we can put our gauge in here and kind of wiggle it into place. So I'm getting some interference here from this bolt, so that maybe this bolt isn't the correct one, or this actually goes the other way. So let's go ahead and remove that. So what I'm thinking is that this bolt goes with just the bolt through the inside, and then so we don't have any interference there. And then we have the washer and the nut on the outside. Yeah, that might make more sense. Let's go ahead and give that a try. Just make sure it's in the right orientation. There we go. Yeah, that's the right way to do it. So the bolt shouldn't spin in this area here, and then that should give us the clearance that we need. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so that's how that's gonna sit. Now on these two bolts, there are some little grommets that you have to kind of install there. So you have these little rubber bushings that go in here, and then you have some washers, grommet, some washers. Now I know these aren't the cleanest and they're a little rusty, but I didn't get a chance to clean them. And we're trying to hurry this project along because we're trying to flip this bike, and I feel like I'm taking way too long in trying to kind of fix this bike. If this was something that we were going to keep, then yeah, I mean, I would try to spend more time on it and try to get a better outcome. But all right, so something is not fitting properly, so I need to go back and revisit what is not fitting here. Okay, so I think I see what we're doing wrong. Okay, so I think we're supposed to have a washer here on the outside, but this is supposed to go towards the inside. We're not supposed to have these washers here. Put those down for now. Okay, so we have that there. Washer. Okay, so that, I think that's the way it's supposed to go. We have that there. Our little spacer that goes in between. Our washer and our castle nut. There we go. I believe that's how it's supposed to go. But I think, yeah, I think we'll go with that for now. Seems about right. It's not very snug, but I don't think it's supposed to be, so it avoids breaking it. Okay, so we got that right. So the light green here with brown is for our neutral switch to see that we're in neutral, and that is where that one is supposed to go. So we got that one correct. And then this one is for the illumination of the cluster itself, and then this one is for the turn signals. So we got those right. Now we just need to add our bolt that goes in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and place the bolt. It goes in there for our bracket. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the bracket now that we're here. So that goes right there. And then we need to put our washer. I'm gonna go ahead and install that here. Get that in place. And then we can tighten this up. Notice how inside of the bracket, the nut, the head of the bolt doesn't turn because it has like a little stopper here that doesn't let it turn. And that's how it goes. So there's this little grommet again right here that we need to kind of put in place so that this has very jagged edges. So you should put that little grommet around the cable wires because that'll kind of insulate that from kind of, you know, over time cutting the wires. So we're gonna try to get that grommet in there. I might need something to push it. This one is actually kind of tough to get in here. This little grommet is not playing nice. I think we got it in place. Now we need to set our gauges in place. Perfect. Okay, so now we have to add our little plastics. So here we have our plastics. They go in like so. Gotta make sure that that falls in place correctly. And then we have our other plastic and our spacer here. And then our washers. And I need to get my castle nuts. There we go. And then these are just 10 millimeters. We're just gonna snug them up. All right, perfect. Okay, so now we can put these here in place. That would go like that. Great, awesome. So before we do that though, I do need to run my cables through there. So let me go ahead and grab those. Okay, so here I have my speedometer cable, which is a longer one that goes to the front wheel. And then I have my RPM cable, which goes to the motor, the engine, I might say. So all we have to do is know that they have to be run through here and then insert them. Hopefully y'all can see that, but all we have to do is insert them into where they go. Now you have to make sure that they fall in the correct place, and you might have to, there we go. I'm just gonna tighten those up. I don't think you need to tighten these with pliers. I think as long as you get them pretty snug, I think you're fine. And then we have the other one, which I think also runs through here. And then we can snug that one up. All right. Okay, So there we have it. We have our cables installed, routed. All we have to do now is install our gauges in their correct location. Check that we're running the cables properly. Actually, no, we're not. This cable, we need to put it, we need to set this cable to go backwards through here, and then that'll loop back. Perfect. So actually, technically that should go through there. Okay. All right, so there we go. We have our gauges there installed. Now we just need to find the nuts, which are these, and the washers, which I believe there's some castle nuts that go down here. It's really tricky to kind of show you this because they're in here right in the middle. We might have to even turn the wheel just a bit. But yeah, the castle nuts are kind of down here in a very tricky spot to get to. So just gonna have to maneuver through these and hopefully get them in place. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna twist these around. So these bolts here that are 12 millimeter, I thought they were supposed to be these nuts that go there. Hopefully I don't have to take off the gauges to remove these, but they're actually not supposed to be these bolts. They're supposed to be the castle nuts, which makes more sense because these have castle nuts. So this one's supposed to go right there, and then you tighten that up, and that's where it's supposed to go. And then these nuts are the ones that go in the bottom in these positions here. Those are the ones that kind of hold the whole cluster in place. So I'm just gonna remove these, and hopefully that my bolt doesn't back out. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Let's try it out, see if how they look. This key, I might have to get this rekeyed or get another switch because it's just too finicky. You have to kind of wiggle it the right way for it to turn. There we go. Okay. There we go, perfect. So then we have left turn signal, cool. Then we have right turn signal, perfect. And then this is the neutral switch. So technically we hit first, oh, there we go, turns off, perfect. And if we get it into neutral, it goes into neutral, perfect. Cool, all right, I'm super happy with that. I don't know if you guys can see, but the turn signal here on this bracket is very crooked. I think the bike was dropped at one point. I did try to straighten it out a little bit, but it's a little bit too far gone. But that's okay, it doesn't look too bad from far away, but I might be able to straighten it out just a little bit more later on. All right, so now I need to install the nuts that went there at the bottom with some washers, and I think we should be in good shape. All right, so there you have it. We have our gauges installed, and honestly, they look pretty good. They come out really clean. They look really nice. So now it's time to move to the rear tail light. All right, so our rear tail light has a bracket that looks just like this. This is a black bracket. Some motorcycles have them in a chrome color or chrome finish. This one is black, however, and then we have 2 wires. Now, the fender itself should be grounded to ground, I guess you can say. And then you have 2 wires. So one of the wires is the constant power to just the regular running light, I guess you can say. And then the other one, it's supposed to be the brake light. So I want to make sure that that is working properly before I go on any further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the running lights first, so I can find out which one is the running light, and then I'm going to test the brake lights. So to do that, I'm going to use a test light. So let me show you. And did I forget to connect something? You know what? Yes, I did. All right, so this wire is actually supposed to go connected to the brown wire over here. So that one is actually not even connected to anything. So this is supposed to go connected to this one. So that's what I forgot to do. Okay, so I need to connect this wire to the brown wire coming to the back, and that is my, that is actually my running light. Okay, so then I need to test to see if my brake light is actually working. So in theory, this should be the brake light power. So I'm gonna hold it here and I'm gonna press the brake on my handlebars and see if it works. And it does not. I'm gonna press the brake on the emergency brake. Okay, so that one, it's turning on with the foot brake. There we go. It's a little, but it is turning on. But my handlebar brake is not working. So I think I have an issue with my switch in my handlebar, but that's okay because I know that, well, that should be, yeah. So I need to check the handlebar switch. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. Okay, well, at least we know that this one is the brake, and then this one is going to be the running light. Okay, so what I need to do first is I need to either splice this one and solder it like I've been doing with the other ones, or simply add a butt connector. However, I don't have those type of butt connectors. I think I'm just gonna solder it directly and call it a day. There is butt connectors there so that in case you need to, remove the tail light or something, but that's if you ever have to. You can just cut it and resolder it again. That's what I would do to get a better connection. I really don't like these butt connectors. Those butt connectors, I feel like over time they come loose and you have dirt inside of them. Like on the original bikes, there's always dirt inside of them, and I mean, they're not sealed properly. They're just kind of on there hanging on, and even though they're designed to hold that way, I don't trust them. So what I'm gonna do is I should probably turn off the bike first. There we go. And I'm going to probably disconnect my battery before I do any of this. And then I'm gonna just splice the cable and solder this connection. If you're ever gonna do anything with heat shrink, I would suggest that you get the marine grade heat shrink, because that one has sort of like a goo inside or like a sealant inside. And so whenever you go to connecting, or whenever you go to heating up your butt connector or your connection, then you kind of see that goo kind of coming off the ends, and that gives you a better seal. And that is sealed. And so that wire is going down to our connection over here, which is going to go on our bracket. Before I do that, I'll probably need to clean this up a little bit. As you can see, I have a lot of little tape. This tape, I used it when I was taking the bike apart to figure out where wires were supposed to go. And so it helps a lot to help you identify all the wires, but we don't need them anymore because all of our wires are connected back in their place. So I'm just gonna go ahead and remove all of those. So that way we can clean this up a little bit more. Oh, and also there is a 15 amp fuse that goes here. That is the old style, which I'll show you here. I think I have it here. It's the tube style type of fuse. These, they're kind of old school, you know, they're not specifically water sealed either. And they're, you know, they're harder to get, I think, nowadays. So I went ahead and just installed this fuse holder. I thought it was a maxi fuse, but it turns out to be a mini fuse, the smaller type of fuses. But it's still good. It's weather sealed, so it comes with a little you know, rubber cover like that. And so I went ahead and installed that one instead, so that we can have a little bit better connection and of course a better seal. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of clean these wires up here a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so now we can go ahead and move to installing our tail light. I kind of robbed this tail light from the the CB550 that we worked on before. It's the same type of tail light for this bike, but since I know I'm not going to restore that bike, I decided to just use that one on this bike because, well, honestly, it's not going to be restored. That one we are going to turn into a custom bike, and we're not going to use, you know, this type of tail lights or anything. So I figured instead of buying a new tail light, I'll just use this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one. It works perfectly fine. I do have to install a negative connection here. That negative connection can go to just the ground wire, which is on this one. It'll be one of these black wires, but I can find it. If not, it's the green wire here. So these green wires are the ground. I thought they were grounded to the chassis, so I just need to find the ground and splice into that one, but that's no big deal. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so I found the connection here, and that is the one that's going to go on our ground here. Hopefully y'all can see that. So this connection is going to go here on the ground, and then from here we're going to splice it into one of these black wires here. I don't like to just press them in, so I'll show you here what I'm going to do. I usually take my pliers and I start cutting into these to try to remove the cover here, the yellow cover. Sometimes you have to cut it off. Again, I just don't trust these connections that are not soldered, and I don't know, I feel like with vibration of the road and stuff, I feel like they come loose after a while. So I'd rather just solder them in. So yeah. By the way, fun fact, if it was up to me, and if it's a custom build like my other motorcycle, I wouldn't use colored wire. I really don't like the way that looks for whatever reason. I just think it looks kind of ugly, to be honest. So we're gonna run this through here first so we can get our length. it's just, I mean, if you know your bike and you know what wire goes where, and you know how to use a voltmeter, and you know, you're always going to be able to know where, you know, what wire is which. So having a bunch of different color wire on your bike, I just think it doesn't look that great, to be honest, especially if it's exposed. Now, if you use something to cover the wires, like a wire loom or something like that to cover them, then that's perfect. This connector is a little bit big for this type of wire, but that's okay because we're gonna solder it in. All right, so I soldered my connection, and that's going to work for our ground wire here. As you can see, this one has butt connectors. Again, I'm not gonna use those. I'm gonna go ahead and solder those in. But before I do that, I need to make sure that I know where they need to go. So we have to install our bracket first here. These wires go in through the middle hole here. And so the bracket's supposed to go like that, but the wires have to be fed through here. All right, so I have my taillight bracket installed here, and then that took a little bit longer than I thought. And the reason for that is because I forgot that I needed to run the wires underneath a little section here in the fender that is metal. And that section basically is there so that if the tire were to hit the fender and rub up against the fender for whatever reason, the wires that are going to the rear tail light don't rub and therefore, you know, break the wires. So I had already run one through there, which was the green one, but I forgot that I needed to run all the other ones through there as well. So that was my mistake, but I went ahead and corrected that, and now we can go ahead and get ready to install the tail light. Now, as I remember telling you, there are a couple of wires here that are already wired. So basically we have the one with the connector for the ground, so that one is already done. But then I also have another one that is already wired, which is going to the running lights, and I need to find out which one that is. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the bike on, the ignition on, to check to see which one is the correct one. So there we go. Got a good connection there. Just gonna blow on it a little bit so that cools off. And then we can run our heat shrink all the way in. Perfect. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this nut here that kind of is just to hold down the cables. I'm just going to unscrew it here, and I'm going to place our new terminal right there, and that'll be our ground for the taillights. I could have grounded it to the fender, but you know, maybe the connection wouldn't have been that great there. But no, I think this works. I think this is the perfect place for that. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tighten that up. Perfect. Okay. All right. So now all we have to do is remember where our cables went, because again, like I said, I am running this tail light and this has butt connectors, but again, I don't like them, and I don't have this type of connector. That's another thing, but I really don't like to run just connectors like that can fall off over time, especially like on tail lights, because, well, you need those for sure. Otherwise, somebody can run into you. Again, but this is how I like to do it. Everybody does it differently. And everybody has the right to do it however they like. But for me, this is how I'm going to do it. This is the first time I use this type of solder, and honestly, I'm not very impressed with it. It flows okay, but I really don't know if I like it yet. Okay, gonna go ahead and try to put the heat shrink over it. Get the other heat shrink. Perfect. Okay, so now I'll go ahead and run the screws back here. And the other one on this side. Yeah, the you know, the tail light has a little bit of rust and has, you know, it's used, but that's what we have. And I mean, I don't think we should spend more money. Again, it looks great, it still looks good, and you know, hopefully the next owner will be able to put all that stuff on if they want to update the bike. All right, there we go. Should we get tail light? Nice. Do y'all see that? That's awesome. Yeah, so let me switch. Oh, that's super cool. So in the position number 2, the tail light remains on, but the bike or the front headlight turns off. So if you put in position number 1, that's when the front tail light or the front headlight turns on, and you get your tail light as well. And I don't think we have brake. I think my front switch is not working, but I need to fix that. But if I were to use my, hey, nice. So that's my emergency brake or the foot brake. If I pull it down, it's not connected right now to the actual brake, but look, it actually works pretty good. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. Okay, so I just need to clean this up a little bit, and I think that's it. I think that is pretty much everything that we need to do to this bike to get it back up and running. Really, there's not a lot left to do. All I have to do is put the carbs back. I took them off to kind of show you all how the float level works, and I shot that video for you all. But I just need to put them back. I need to put the air boxes on, put the side covers on, and everything else that is pretty much just dressed over the bike. And I think we're gonna be done with the bike. I have to probably order a new switch for the brake, for the front brake light, and that's fine. I can go ahead and do that, and a new switch for the ignition because that one's sticking. So I'll probably order those 2 parts, order the battery, and I think we're gonna be pretty much done with this bike. Really, there's nothing much left to do to it to get it back up and running. So thank you all so much for watching. That is it for this week's video. I hope you all enjoy it, but I'll see you next week. And next week, we're really gonna get this bike hopefully running. If I get those pieces in place, well, actually, I don't need those pieces to get it back up and running. I do need the battery, so I need to source the battery. But regardless, we might be able to get this bike running, even if we have to use these jumper cables and I need to see what's going on with the ignition because it wasn't turning over the last time I tried it. The starter wasn't working for whatever reason, and I think it's the solenoid. So I might have to order a solenoid because the tail light, the front headlight is, well, it's supposed to do that when you try to start. So I think that's it for this week's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you all subscribing, leaving some comments, and just, you know, being a part of this video and being a part of this restoration, half restoration, this project that we have going on. So I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please feel free to leave some comments. I'll try to respond to them as soon as possible. And thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you here next week.